this event will be recorded, and you will receive the recording afterwards, and either on your email or other way that our PR team has communicated with you. Okay, it's 5:30 p.m. here in Ukraine. Thank you everybody for coming. My name is Andrei Suslenko. I'm a former journalist and I'm a communication specialist. I'll be moderating and hosting this event. So we're gonna have 60 minutes for all of this. As you know, the topic of this briefing is the actual state of affairs at the captured Ukrainian nuclear power plants and what are the global implications. We're gonna try to cover 4 topics. Number 1, updates on the plant's governance and physical well-being of captured staff at the Chernobyl NPP. Number 2, the Russian Federation conceals and downplays the critical state of affairs at the occupied Ukrainian nuclear power plants. Number 3, global implications of the current blackout at Chernobyl NPP and exclusion zone facilities. And number 4, the current and future implications of ruthless Russian military actions at Ukrainian NPPs for communities worldwide. So these are 4 main topics we're going to concentrate today. We have prepared 5 speakers for you, and I'm going to introduce each of them a bit later. A few technical things. I'm very happy to see that there's large interest from foreign journalists. All of you, or most of you, will have a chance to speak up and raise any issue that you would like after we all done. So the speakers will have 7 minutes each. Then I'm gonna move on to the next one. And after 35 minutes are done, we're gonna have Q&A with you, fellow journalists. So each of you, what you could do, you could either write your question in the message box over here, or you could raise your hand. And to raise your hand, you can just do like this, what I did. You press 2 directions and then either raise your hand or lower the hand. Okay, and I will give you the turn. I hope that's correct. That's all good. And also, if you don't mind, maybe you could write a word or 2 right now in the messages. Where are you from and what is your media outlet? So we will have a bit more information about you. And while you're doing this, I'm gonna introduce our first speaker. This is Valerie Corsonov. He's gonna have his 7 minutes. He's a founder of an NGO, European Institute of Chernobyl, and also he's a member of the Public Council of the State Agency for Exclusion Zone Management. Valerie, hi. If you can hear us, please start now. If the technical team is here with me, if you could reach Valerie, would be good. My PR team also.
Unfortunately, we can't see him.
We can't see him yet. Okay, so then let's use this moment. Let's use this moment.
He's absent. Mm-hmm.
He's absent yet. Okay, let's use this moment to introduce ourselves in the messages right here. Please introduce yourselves. Like Madis just did, he wrote the question, so you could write something there. So, also, what I want to say that this all going to be in English, and one of our speakers, she's going to speak Russian, and you will hear. She's a female, and you're going to hear the male translation, male voiceover in English. Please don't be confused. That's how we dealt with the situation. Okay, so while Valerie is yet away, I'm going to introduce further speakers. So after Valerie, we're going to have Oleksiy Pasyuk, who's going to speak later on. He's the environmental expert from NGO Eco Action. Then third, we're going to hear from Lembit Shiver. He's a founder and the CTO of the Cosmic Shielding Corporation in the United States of America. And then we're going to have Olga Kosharna, who is an expert in nuclear energy and nuclear safety. And then in the end, we're going to listen from Jan Haferkamp, the senior expert nuclear energy and energy policy from Greenpeace. And thanks a lot, guys, for listing who you are and where you're from. It's good to see that there's a large interest. I'll give you a few updates on the way. I'm rereading the news, and if anything happens with our topic, I will shortly brief you later on. Dima and Luca, let me know. Dennis and Luca, let me know whether Valerie is here already. Okay.
Valerie is in Ukraine now.
He is joining. He is joining right now.
Maybe some connection, some difficulties with connection. Just give us a sec.
Wonderful, no worries. We might prolong the event if you will have more questions. So then we can expect not only 60 minutes, but 65, 70, or 80 minutes. So be sure we'll try answering all your questions at the moment. Oh, wow, so many of you. Thanks a lot for reaching out. Okay.
Valerie is here right now.
Wonderful.
We are waiting for him.
Okay.
For his
Zoom to appear. Okay, hi Valerie. Now we can see you. Maybe you would put down the camera a little bit so we could see your face fully. Good. So as I said, Valerie Corsonov will start the media briefing. He's the founder of NGO European Institute of Chernobyl, and he's a member of the Public Council of the State Agency for Exclusion Zone Management. Valerie, your 7 minutes, please. Valerie, please note if you heard us. Okay. Technical issues.
Valerie, do you hear us?
Unfortunately, he's not. But we're trying to arrange this. The meeting is recording. You have asked this again, so the meeting will be recorded when Valerie will start. My technical team should start the recording right now, if you can.
We have already.
Okay. Olha Horkovchuk, I will tell you this, that they're recording not from Zoom, but from the screen from their computer. Can we move to the next speaker? Yes, Kate, we can move to the next speaker. I agree with this. Valerie will fix whatever he needs to fix with this. Oleksiy, let's start with you. Oleksiy Pasuk, the environmental expert and the NGO from NGO Eco Action. Oleksiy, will start with you, and then Valerie will join us afterwards. Oleksiy, you're muted.
Yes, sure. Sorry. Good day, everyone. I think it will still be interesting to hear from Valerie because he has a direct contacts with people on the Chernobyl exclusion zone. But I guess we can talk a little bit about our concern with what is happening. So basically, you are aware, right, that the Russian military forces are at the Chernobyl site and the Zaporizhzhia nuclear site, but there are also a number of different facilities which were shelled through Ukraine where the radioactive waste is being stored. So there is many things which are happening at the same time. So I would say a little bit about the Chernobyl zone. You have to be reminded that there is quite a complex of various facilities which are there. There are 3 reactors which are not operating. There is a destroyed Chernobyl reactor. There are 3 different spent fuel storages. There is a massive number of the waste from still radioactive waste from Chernobyl disaster. And there is a very different level of concern which we have. I mean, the simple fact that we have a military vehicle moving through the exclusion zone is already our concern because there is an area of the special kind of rules in place which are supposed to minimize any impact and not to put like radioactive dust in there. So that alone is already a problem. But then we have a set of quite complicated say equipment or facilities in place which require continuous operation, and including the electricity provided, which, as you know now, another story when there is a major high voltage lane kind of disconnected from the site. That means, again, many different things, from the fact that you have to ventilate certain areas, you have equipment which measures situation, you have this spent fuel storage, where you have a fuel which needs to be kind of constantly monitored and cooled. But I mean, it would be a problem even without military if something like that is happening. Now with the military in place and heavy weaponry, there is a risk of how it will develop, for example, in case of the shelling of certain facilities or the spent fuel storages. The concern is that it will get say the fuel can get cracked, and then you have an operation into the air of radioactive materials, and it's expose stuff which is on the site. And finally, and that's where I hope we'll have some update, we have stuff which is effectively kept as a hostage on the site and is not able to properly maintain their work because they're not being, there is no rotation of stuff already for a while. But I think with all this story, we have a much greater concern with Zaporizhia, where you have 6 reactors in operation, and where you have also spent nuclear fuel, which is still, let's say, hot, which is different from what you have in Chernobyl, but also an open air, like dry storage of spent fuel. And again, if you have shooting, and we already had a shooting at the facilities, you can't imagine how it will develop. Or simple loss of external power in Zaporizhia would mean a much greater concern, because there are provisions, of course, in place on the site to keep it in operation with reserve electricity, but it's not endless. You have a diesel generator probably for 7 days, you have batteries, but unfortunately, what we saw over like history of nuclear and accidents which are happening, that suddenly you have unthinkable sequences of the event, which lead to disaster. So you might have some provisions in place, but it's very difficult to kind of eliminate all of them. And when you have nuclear on the, military on the side, it's particularly complicated. And it seems like it's important, well, there are different issues or explanation why would Russians want to be there, but one of them is, seems that Russia wants to use facilities pretty much as the safer place, as a safer base, understanding that Ukrainian army would not be kind of ready to get into the combat operation next to the facilities, which can be a disaster for people around. And now, just one point, I'm really running fast with a lot of stories, but I think one point which I want to stress is International Atomic Energy Agency response. Basically said that they are in general concerned, they try to reach out, but I want to point out that for me, it's not much surprise that the agency is not able to do much. We have to remember that it's actually created to promote nuclear industry. It's a part of its charter. So talking of the risk itself is already tricky for them. And there's a dialogue when Russia is not meeting their obligations on the agreements on international atomic energy decisions is kind of hardly surprising, because at this moment Russia doesn't meet obligations on pretty any international agreements, and UN in general is not able to have a strong response. However, I think what we should expect is a much more active response from the governments which use nuclear energy, which are part of the Atomic Agency. We see a response, of course, from Europe, but there are countries like China or India or Brazil or South Africa which also have nuclear programs, and which have the mechanism to approach Moscow both on the political level and on the technical level of the agencies responsible for the nuclear safety. So yeah, I encourage you, if you want to learn more on that, just get to me directly. There is my email in chat, and I will get back. And there are many more perspectives on that. One, for example, is the fact that Ukrainian electricity grid is currently isolated from all neighbors, and it makes it pretty sensitive to what is happening. And I mean, one of the way Russia can really impact what is happening is they control energy infrastructure, is basically creating country level problem in electricity supply. So
Alexei, time is running out, unfortunately.
Yes,
so
I'm here.
Thanks for that. We've had questions already. I will let you answer those after everybody has finished. And now we are moving to Valerie Corsonov. Valerie, I know that you're in the place where the internet wasn't stable, so you're using the mobile internet. Let's test. And if the connection is slow, then I will ask you to turn off the video, okay?
Okay.
Go on, please.
Yes, thank you. Okay, first of all, I want to say thank you for all who came for this press conference. I'm the Valerie Corsonov. I'm the head of the NGO called European Institute of Chernobyl. We work with the social problematic and also with the information disaster of the Chernobyl. So it's more about the history, about fakes, about Chernobyl radiation from the Soviet time, and about how the Soviet Union was hide information about Chernobyl. And now we see a lot of the same things from that time. And now see how Russia try to produce a lot of fakes about the situation on the Ukrainian nuclear power plants, and about Chernobyl, and about military attack on the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Let's remember about 4th of March, when Russian military was attacked by tanks the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. And this is a violation of the UN resolution about banning military attacks on the nuclear facilities. And we all understand that nobody can't shoot to the nuclear facilities. It's prohibited, it's not normal, it's horrible. And the part of this resolution specifies that the UN Security Council must act immediately, but they don't even get together about this. They say that's the time of the war, and at this time there is a possibility for a lot of bad things. But we have this resolution, and this resolution must work, for every day, not only for peaceful days, and not work at the time of the war. And we all understand that for the first time in the history of the mankind, the military, someone fired an attack of the nuclear facility. And we say that this is the first act of the international nuclear terrorism in our history. We all can imagine the situation when, for example, Algeria fired or attacked the French nuclear power plant, on some kind of the separatist in China attacking nuclear power plants. And everybody understands this is a horror and a scandal of the new level for the world. But now in Ukraine, we have a silence about it, we express concern, and the EAA says that this is normal. It's like, it's bad, but it's not like, it's a scandal. There is no danger about that. But we have a UN resolution, and we understand that it's like a next level of the horrible things. At the same time, moment, Russia launched a series of the fakes against Ukraine to justify the takeover of Ukrainian nuclear plants. In the first report of the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation about the capture of the Chernobyl, they said that they captured the station and conducted joint together, with the Ukrainian military. And also, there is no increase of the level of the radiation. But we know in a few days, our state nuclear regulatory inspector reported about increased radiation levels. So they lied about, they lied everything about the big things, about small things, and about Chernobyl too. And also we can see the situation at the station is not under control. There is no objective information from the Russia, and all information will have a fake inside. Also, we can see the situation at the station is not under control from Ukraine or from the EAA, and we know that they turn off the I don't remember how to say. So all the staff is exhausted, and the personnel of the station, of the Zaporizhzhia station, are tortured. And we know that the same things can be on the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. So there's a lot of, moments about fake, and a lot of moments about lies, propaganda, and the military use nuclear power plants, like a base, because they understand that Ukraine will not attack these nuclear power plants. We demand that the territories of the Ukrainian power plants must be liberated from the Russian troops, and that the nuclear power plants be taken under control on the UAEA.
Valerie, is that it?
I think, yes, maybe is that it, but also I want to say something about the personnel on the Chernobyl power plant, because we have our source, and for the last few days, we have a lot of information about how the people feel inside. And we know that they have, they can't go outside. They work every day because they can't, okay. So now we know that they have a lot of problems inside, and for the fourth day, yes, for 14th day, they work like a whole time every day, and they have no time for the rest. Some of them have a problem, with the health, and the Russia says like it's all okay, and that everybody work together with the Russian troops, but we know that it's not like that. We understand that there is a lot of possibilities for the big problems on the Chernobyl power plant, because we have no objective information, but Russian troops and Russian, I think, government, they do a lot of, a lot of horrible things and lie about every step. So I think this person who work this time, they need time to rest. But we understand that for a long time they can't do this possibility.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you. And this raised the questions, and that you will, or somebody of you will answer later, about the tortures that you mentioned. In short, I'll summarize what Valerie wanted to say. So we know more about what is happening in Chernobyl nuclear power plant. We know a bit less on what is happening in Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, because we have our sources in Chernobyl one. And all of you know already that the monitoring systems have been turned off on both plants. And we know, and we have to express that later, as Isabel has asked in the messages here, that on the Zaporizhzhia power plant, tortures of staff were occurring, and on Chernobyl one, for 14 days, the staff hasn't been shifted. So the situation is really dire at this point. Okay, we're moving on to the third speaker at this point, Lembit Shiver. Please prepare. Lembit is a founder and the CTO of the Cosmic Shielding Corporation in the United States of America. Also, he is the director of the CREAT project at the Nuclear Physics Institute of the CAS in the Czech Republic, and a professor of subatomic and plasma physics at Chalmers University of Technology in Sweden. Lembit, hi. Thanks a lot for joining us. And please, your 7 minutes.
Hi, thank you very much for giving me a chance to talk here. Maybe I should say also my background is actually in nuclear engineering, and one of my main areas for many years was severe nuclear accidents. So I've been involved in the technical and evaluation of the technical radiological consequences of both Chernobyl and Fukushima accidents. And I was actually a PhD student when the Chernobyl accident happened at 1:23 local time, 26 of April 1986. And I was working at a Swedish research reactor. We were one of the first in the world measuring the increased activity from the accident. And we then reported that. However, as most of you know, it took around 60 hours until the Soviet authorities really admitted the accident. So I have actually been a number of times at Chernobyl, and I want to emphasize, first of all, that there's only peaceful activities going on there, and it's a very nice facility, and people are friendly, and absolutely no involvement of making any bomb and so on, and all this propaganda, because this I've been seen with my own eyes. And I want to emphasize also that it's totally unacceptable, which already the previous speaker talked about, that the personnel at Chernobyl have not been allowed to change for now, I think, 15 days. And of course, now that the 750 kilowatt power grid has been cut off, and the diesel, we have only the diesel backup for 48 hours. So this can lead, of course, to the consequences, because you need electricity for the pumps to the pool, as we already said, for cooling the burnout fuel. However, it's not that hot, so it's not absolutely on a daily basis now a severe accident. But if the pumps are not working, the water will start to boil, the temperature will increase, there will be increased corrosion, and then it will be hydrogen, and it can be a fire. And it can be a big fire, and then the radioactive substances can be released to the surrounding, which is, of course, it's very severe. And the lack of electricity is, of course, also influencing that ventilation is not working. It influences the humidity in the sarcophagus, and not to mention for the staff, there is no heating where they are living. And as you heard previous speaker, I mean, they are being tortured. They are not allowed to go out. There's a lack of food. There's lack of medicine and so on. And they are under severe stress. So it's very difficult to maintain, of course, all the safety and radiation monitoring which they are doing. And of course, the Russian troops have also taken up, I mean, contaminations into the air and stuff that. So, and of course, when we talk about the shelling to other nuclear power stations, that's of course extremely severe, because they have also hot fuels in the pools. And if the cooling is disappearing from that, there can be melting of both the cladding and then the fuel itself, which can lead to severe fires and release of radioactive material to both, of course, Ukrainian people, but all the surrounding countries. And we know from the history, for example, in Chernobyl, that is not only the surrounding which will be influenced. I can see, for example, during the accident, my hometown in Sweden, 1,400 kilometers away from Chernobyl, got 200 times more activity than Kiev, 37 kilometers from Chernobyl, because of the wind. So this is something of concern for the whole Europe, and of course, Russia and Belarus also. So I think the Russian actions really falls under crime under the International Convention of Anti-Nuclear Terrorism Act and Article 7 of the Convention on the Protection of Nuclear Material. And it's, in my opinion, unacceptable that IAEA and so on is not taking this more seriously. And I think, as also was said before, that other huge nuclear power using countries as India and China and others should take a stand on this and really prevent this to happening and say no and support Ukraine. It's the area. And of course, it's very important that we all raise our voices against the fake propaganda that is a nuclear weapon or dirty bomb manufacturing. It is really, really unbelievable lies, in my opinion. So I mean, it's not acceptable, and we shouldn't be quiet about that, especially since I also, as an outsider, has been in all the facilities, and I know it's not true. So I shouldn't maybe take more time, but I'm very happy to talk, and I'm very happy to take any question, of course, afterwards from anybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lembit. Questions are arising, and you will have a chance to answer those afterwards. Thanks a lot for your brief intro. Now we move into Olga Kosharna, who is an expert in nuclear energy and nuclear safety, and she previously worked at the State Nuclear Regulatory Authority of Ukraine and the National Institute for Strategic Studies in the Energy Security Department. We're going to have a translation simultaneous. So Olga will speak out, then we'll have a second or two delay, and then the male voice will voice over it. So let's try and see how this works. Olga, please, your 7 minutes.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for invitation. I've been working at the National Entity for Regulation of Nuclear Safety and Radiation Safety in Ukraine. And as a regulator in the past, I would like to say that today at night, I studied the report on safety for the spent fuel number one, which is of wet type. The spent fuel is kept in the pool. Point 14 is devoted to analysis of disaster danger. One, if power is cut off. This is absence of ventilation, accumulation of radiolysis hydrogen under the ceiling, which if reached a 4% concentration, leads to hydrogen explosion. Second moment. When losing water. So the spent fuel has been there for a long time, but the heat extraction is not so high. But if the pool is shut down and the water goes away, then the report says that the coefficient of multiplication of neutrons is more than 1. So there will be the self-maintained chain reaction, which would lead to a melting of cover, destroying of physical barrier between environment and the radioactive substance inside, which would lead to emission of radiation outside. Our national regulator put on its webpage a model of spread of radiation calculated according to RODOS program, depends on the wind, temperature, and the like. And as of March 4, this model, the wind blew towards Russia and Belarus, and the concentration of spread of radionuclides was indicated there. If somebody is interested, or you could have a look at the English version of the document. Then Russian Federation has violated 3 international conventions, which is a party to. First, the International Convention on Fighting the Acts of Nuclear Terrorism, Article 2. So this is violation of Article 2 in that convention. Second, Convention of Physical Protection of Nuclear Material. This is the violation of crime under Article 3rd, International Convention on capturing hostages, Article 1. All this gives Ukraine the grounds to prepare materials to submit to the International Criminal Court, because MAGATE is an impotent structure, the same as the UN, which doesn't have any methodology of influence on the aggressor, which violates all international agreements. Another moment, the Director General of MAGATE told today that monitoring of moving nuclear material in the exclusion zone and on Zaporozhye NPP, so they lost control, which was implemented within non-spreading nuclear weapon treaty. what it means, what it threatens by, as our national regulator cannot control these two sites, the exclusion zone and the Zaporozhye NPP, the spent fuel in Chernobyl zone, they can develop a dirty bomb. And they blame Ukraine on producing the dirty bomb. That's a very dangerous thing. So the control by MAGATE and is lost. And calling governments of countries, the countries will show their great concern. But we need to act through courts, because there are facts, the hostages, they fall under the article of International Convention. Therefore, Russian Federation should be excluded from all nuclear unions. For example, the Worldwide Association of Nuclear Operators. I do understand that MAGATE will not exclude it from the parties of non-proliferation treaty, but they should do it in other ways. For example, Russia at conference on nuclear safety, conference on unified spent fuel handling. So there should be condemnation in demonstration form, supported with the criminal case. This is military violation, military crime. Therefore, the situation can be developed in unforeseen way, because he shoots Zaporizhzhia, he shoots diesel generator with huge amount of oil. Now information came that Russian mine Kakhovka deposit, which is close to nuclear NPP. I don't know what to do with that, how to stop those varvars of the 21st century. That's it.
Thank you, Olga. It's a really hard question to answer, how to stop those barbarians of 21st century. And I also read that news that you just mentioned, that the near Kakhovka, they landmined the territory near the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, Team Judson, thanks a lot for your questions. We will answer those a bit later. We're moving on to our final speaker at the moment, who is Jan Haferkamp. Jan is the senior expert in nuclear energy and energy policy from Greenpeace. Jan, welcome, and please take the mic.
You asked me to say a little bit more about Zaporizhzhia, where we have now heard a quite good overview about what is happening in Chernobyl. As you know, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power station is currently occupied. 2 out of 6 reactors are operating, and 2 out of the 4 750 kilovolt lines are still operating. That means that 2 are out. The staff is able to rotate shift. That is different than in Chernobyl. The families that were willing to evacuate from Energodar have had the opportunity to evacuate. But the nuclear power station is under the command of a Russian army officer. That means that the staff will have to ask confirmation for every decision from Russian army personnel. And as you just already referred to today, the border side of the reservoir alongside the nuclear power station, according to Energatom, has been mined. That means that explosives have been brought directly next to the nuclear power plant site, which increases the risk of fighting in case there would be attempts to retake it, or also of accidents. I think that the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power station case at this moment clearly shows that no nuclear power station has ever been built for a war zone. There are still ongoing risks of attack. There is no oversight from the nuclear regulator. The nuclear regulator only has sparingly contact offline or online on distance, but cannot oversee the work directly on the plant. The staff is under stress, is working under duress. There's also a lack of staff. There has been staff before the overtake that has been able to evacuate early, and there has been some stress on staff numbers. And most importantly, the staff cannot decide on itself. I just want to remind in the last few minutes that I have that, of course, Zaporizhzhia is the biggest nuclear power station in Europe and is now occupied. But we do see a move from the Russian armed forces towards also the southern Ukraine nuclear power station, where they are currently on 46 kilometers distance. That does mean that if they break through in that area, we would see a similar scenario possibly playing in southern Ukraine. Those are also VVR 1000 reactors, but of 3 different reactor types. 2 of them quite a bit older than what we see in Zaporizhzhia, which also is increasing the risk. For Greenpeace, it is very clear. The war needs to stop immediately now. And what is important is that independent oversight is directly reinstalled. Because the risks that we are seeing now, risks of technical mistake, human mistake, combinations of that or of attack, are just too large. And with that, I would like to leave it and give the opportunity for questions and answers, because I think that's the most important part.
Thank you, Jan. Yeah, we have plenty of questions, and I will start with those who were the first ones. And dear speakers, if you feel that you want to answer that question, please raise your hand like this so I could see, and I would let you answer those, okay? Okay, so the first question came from Kate Brown. Has the shelter been stress tested for the artillery or missiles? And Oleksiy, I think you answered those, but if you didn't, who can answer the question whether we have stress tested for artillery or missiles? If anyone wants to answer that, that would be amazing. Okay, Jan, please.
When the new containment was designed, it was not designed for acts of war, and that is a general practice within the nuclear industry. Acts of war until roughly the mid-2000s were not even allowed to enter discussions, because that was an issue of security that was dealt with by security forces and security authorities, and not by the design of the nuclear power station. Only since roughly half of the 2000s, we see attention for acts of war slowly entering the debate, mainly on the wave of the attacks of 9/11 in the United States, but they've never really been taken fully seriously. It was always argued that armies were there and civilian protection services were there to prevent acts of war threatening nuclear power installations, and that is also true for the design of the new containment. Having said that, the new containment is there to seclude the old sarcophagus. Yes, of course, it can be penetrated. There are weapon systems that can do that. that would mean that material from inside would be able to go outside. It would not be a disaster in itself, but it would be a leak. The question is, and I think the worry at this moment is much larger, is and it was already referred to, the increasement of humidity in the under the containment when ventilation would stop. That could corrode the containment, but it also would increase the risks of water flowing back towards towards the space where there is still spent fuel lava. That complication could lead to some emission of radioactive material if we indeed have leaks from the containment. That's not good for the people working there. Definitely not.
Thank you, Jan, for answering that. And I think you can also help us together with Olga answering the question, how much diesel fuel and backup generators are stockpiled at Zaporizhia and other reactor sites, if you know that. Let's start with Jan.
Alexei already gave an answer on that. There should be for 7 days.
There should be.
Yes, but there is another concern in this case, and that is that over the last few years, there have been problems with spare parts for the diesel generators in the Zaporizhia nuclear power station. There have been a few corruption cases involved there, whereby the delivery of the right spare parts was not really secured, and we have had times that diesel generators were not functional. There has been made a plan to improve that situation, amongst others with financing from the EBRD. That plan foresaw in restoring a proper situation in 2019, but that was delayed until 2023. And as you know, it's now 2022. So we are not quite sure, at least only based on the information I have available, whether all the diesel generators will be able to function as they are intended to at the moment that they are intended to. It's a concern where we hope to get information further in the coming days, but it is a concern where we have to take care of.
Thank you for that. And question number 3 was, what is the potential for damage to the confinement structure at Chernobyl Unit 4 as the war continues? Who can answer that? And please raise your hand so I will give you the mic.
Well,
Alexei,
I think we were just, that was the same question. So we are still talking about the shelter of the destroyed reactor. I would just add a little bit to what Jan was saying. This new containment is quite complicated structure in terms of all kind of equipment which is there. So once it's destroyed, there were so many delays and cost overruns to build it, it will be a problem to then bring it back to the original, to what it's designed to.
Thank you, Alexei. Also, there was a question, what is the living condition of the workers at the occupied nuclear sites? And Valerie has answered that in the chat box. You can see the large answer. So please see that. That's a long answer. And I'll go on further with questions. So Jan van de Putte is asking Olga. Olga, thank you. Reactivity in the ISF-1 would increase if water would disappear or evaporate. Does water not work as the moderator, or is it because of boron concentration? Thanks for clarifying. Olha, if you can hear us, please let us know if you can answer that. We need a moment. She's been translated.
If the water goes away, there will be no bore inside. Therefore, the coefficient of multiplying of neutrons. So this is what, if it is written in the report, that 50% down of water leads to 25%, you know, on the column of the panel.
Thank you, Olga.
Wait, let's try to clarify.
Let's clarify,
so, yeah. So I think what we are getting there is if water drops to the middle of the heights of the fuel, it's stored vertically, then we might get already chain reaction, and if it goes down, then it becomes a further problem. The less water we get, the more problem we get. I mean, the faster is the reaction. Is it correct interpretation? Can you translate it back?
So 25%, if of the original amount of water, then it would lead to chain reaction to number 1.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm moving on to a question from Isabella, probably towards Jan, but others could adapt. How much concern is there about the other NPPs, particularly the South Ukrainian one? Who can answer that? Alexei? Jan.
Yeah,
Jan,
just
please.
as I told you, the Russian army is moving into the direction of the southern Ukraine nuclear power station, and it would be logical in what we've seen over the last week that they would try to get control over that source of electricity as well. They're currently hauled up by the Ukrainian armed forces. 46 kilometers is not very far. If they would break through, it would be about a day, I would suppose, until we would see fighting around the southern Ukraine nuclear power station. That is the same fear that we had around Zaporizhia. That means that there is the possibility also of attack with severe weapons, and would they be able to damage one of the containment structures. The VVR 1000 reactors do have their storage pools within the containment and dry storage outside, but still the containment is not built for attacks with severe weapons. So that is a general concern, and for the rest, we have the same concerns as we now have around the Zaporizhia. There is 2 more nuclear power stations in Ukraine, in Khmelnytsky and in Rivne. That is far more to the west, and for the time being, we do not consider that those are directly under threat right now. What is important to realize is that in Rivne, the VVR 440 reactors have no containment. That means that they're a lot more vulnerable for weaponized attack than the VVR 1000 reactors. And for me personally, having worked with a lot of VVR 440 reactors in Central Europe, that is a very big concern, I have to say.
Thank you, Jan, for that. The next question from Isabella is this. I don't know if you said this already, but if the electricity stops at Chernobyl, what will happen in the Sarcophagus?
Yes, I think we touched a little bit. So you have all kind of system which maintain it in kind of a safe environment. It's first of all, it's a ventilation system. You have equipment to work at certain conditions. So in terms of humidity and temperature, that would be one thing. Another one is concerned for staff. Yeah, this is, we don't expect that there will be kind of a nuclear meltdown or something like that, or a chain reaction or something like that, but it's concerned primarily for people on staff, and it's a long-term concern. It's like international community spent $1.5 billion to build it, and now we might need to repair it because, and it's technically complicated.
Thank you for that. And the third question from Isabella, I'm not sure we can answer it now. if mines went off near Zaporizhia and PP, what kind of accident could happen? We have just learned about those mines, so I think we don't really have the answer. But if somebody wants to try, okay. So Isabella, I think we need to figure out and see later and listen and hear from the military experts. You asked about the recording. Yes, it's been recorded. And of course, we're going to share the recordings later on with each of you. Question from Jan van de Putte. What is, in your opinion, on the stress test document from SNRIU, which is more reassuring on the ISF1 risks, e.g. mentioning that a concentration of a 4% H2 is not likely based on experimental data? This is not my language. I don't really understand what it means, but some of you probably do or does. Please help answering that. Who can?
I will translate it into
Yes.
for the translator, and I think this is a question to Olga. It's an important question to Olga, I think. The question is, what is your opinion about the stress tests that have been carried out by Ukraine? And in the stress test documents from the state regulator, they are a lot more reassuring about the ISF1 spent fuel pool, about the risks there. Amongst others, they are mentioning that 4% hydrogen concentration is not very likely based on experimental data. What is your opinion about that, Holger?
Thank you, Jan.
Do you mean the wet storage in Chernobyl zone for the spent fuel, right? That it would lead to hydrogen explosion and fire if volume concentration reaches 4% for radiolysis percentage, you know, it would lead to explosion and fire.
Thank you, Olga. Jan, do you think we have clarified that?
Yeah, but may I ask it in
Alexei?
Russian, basically? I think the question is more, Ольга, вы думаете, это реалистично, что, ну, то есть, ну, как вы оцениваете шансы, что 4% концентрация может быть достигнута? Я так понимаю, что в стресс...
She can't hear you in Russian. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
Okay, so we're moving
maybe
on.
We can
further.
follow up.
We will definitely follow up with each of this question to within the email to each of you, so no worries about that. Question from Marcin. Reportedly, the staff communicates, at least with Ukraine's regulator, by email only. As I understand and assume, this channel of communication is, at least must be, controlled by the Russian military, but is it known to what degree, in what details, and what are the risks related to this particular situation with communications? Who knows more about this?
I can
Valerie, please. Mm-hmm.
I think if we partially answering about these questions, we can reveal our way of communication with the staff and with crew. About the risk, I think it's really high because we know about the tools of personnel in Zaporizhia, and also we know that communication is lost, and nobody know if they are alive and what with them about the conditions, and the staff is 2 times less than necessary, so they work 23 hours in a day, and also as I was typed in the chat about there is many problems about no medicine, no heating, and physical and mental health problem, and ability to sleep and have a rest, and also no items of personal hygiene because there is a woman also work on the station, and also a big problem about fresh clothing because clothes also have radiation, so they need to have new fresh clothes every day, every shift. So and also they are in like a hostage. So there is a big stress, and we really don't know if they are alive and if our contacts are now alive.
Wow, thank you, Valerie, for this clarification. Alexei wants to adapt.
Yeah, I think from what I read from the nuclear inspectorate, from the regulator, till as long as they had electricity, they still had contact. But the last mention, I mean, last, how you call it, informations from the inspectorate says they don't have knowledge on what is happening on the site. Since electricity was down, there is no communication between regulator and the power plant.
That's a necessary clarification.
Facility at Chernobyl.
Jan, Isabella wants to clarify how dangerous would be the consequences if README NPP is attacked.
The fact that it doesn't have a double a double containment means that it is much more vulnerable to weapons of a lower degree. You do not need such advanced weapons to penetrate the building. And with that, I mean, the chance that you would create an explosion inside the building, rupturing cooling water pipes or heat exchangers, or even rupturing part of the reactor vessel is a lot larger than in case of the VVR 1000 reactor. And for me, that is a nightmare scenario.
Wow, that's bad news, really. I see that all the questions that we have answered. I want to tell you, thank you for interest. Thank you, speakers, for being here and spending an hour with us. I think this is a highly important topic that has been relatively low on agenda of the media, and not only on the media. All of you who have been speaking, thank you so much. Valerie Corsonov, Alexei Pasyuk, Lembit Shiver, Olga Sharna, and Jan Haferkamp. All the guests, the journalists that we had, we will send you the A, link to the recording, and B, follow up with the quotations from each of the speakers and also with answers to your questions. Thank you so much for being here. All the details and the contacts you can find in the chat right now. And also if you need to contact or reach out someone in person, the PR team will help you to do so. Thank you again, and glory to Ukraine. Slava Ukraini.
Slava Ukraini, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.